Well, good morning, students of Art 2. I'm here at Lucy Taylor's studio and looking at her beautiful garden so that you can get an idea of where she lives and the things that she does before we go into her studio. And we'll be heading in there in just a minute. She collects rocks, which is a very important thing in her artwork, and I'll show you in a minute why. So we're going to head on in and visit for the very first time on camera Ms. Lucy Taylor. And there she is.
Hi, MiZ RiVKA.
Hello.
Hi, MiZ RiVKA students.
They know that we went to a conference together to study with the potters from all around the world, and we're very excited about learning about Yixing pottery. But before they see you on tape and learn how to do the teapots, I wanted to introduce them with some of the things that you've been doing just recently so that they can get an idea of the sense of how you work.
Okay, well, why don't we start over here where we have some finished pieces. I've been working with natural organic forms, and you can see these on the shelf. Things related to the sea. If you look closely at this one, there's a piece of coral and some little shells on the top. And when MiZ RiVKA and I went to the Monterey Aquarium and saw all the incredible jellyfish, that inspired me towards this series, which I think of my jellyfish series, which is, as you can see, different than the organic forms here, which are based on textures and mosses and boulders in the Sierras, really. Plus, I see that they kind of joined ocean and mountains together in some of these pieces because I started using these lustrous glazes on the inside. And I don't know if the camera can pick that up, but it looks like kind of like an abalone shell inside. And so I guess mountain and ocean met in some of these pieces. And like this piece, I used a rock from the Sierras as the base. And then it's sort of an organic form with the kind of moss-like texture, and on the inside it has that shell-like texture. So I'm always thinking about textures and form and contrast. This is so much contrast of texture and form in this piece. And that's what makes it interesting, in my opinion. And, okay, so these, and then there's some pieces up here I haven't glazed, because sometimes I made these last summer and I still haven't figured out what I want to do with them. But if you go close up, you can see these two guys, they're very animated. They almost have like little tails, like they're talking to each other. And I haven't figured out what to do. So I'm waiting for that to come to me before I glaze them. They can sit on the shelf for years before I glaze them, if that's has to happen. So my studio is really my garage, but I don't park my car in here. And I've got all kinds of camping stuff, and I have all my cool posters that are inspirations of form. I have Chinese bronze, ancient Chinese bronze urns from like BC, 2500 on my wall here, because I love the forms and I'm just thinking about them. And these are Japanese pottery pieces from like 8000 BC. And I just love those forms too. So I just keep things around me that inspire me, and I'm thinking about what I want to do next. So right here I have some new pieces where I went with smooth rock forms. And these are inspired by those beach pebbles that you find. And I'm going to I'm going to put this up here, and you're going to see the resemblance between this piece and these pieces. This was sort of my model for this piece. So this is a hollow form, and these have not been fired, so that you're looking at raw clay here. They're dry-ish, but not fired. So they're leather hard, and I'm going to be glazing these. Here's another piece. So this is the first one I made. And actually I used some of the techniques that we're going to see later in the Yi-Xing teapots to make these pieces, because I learned from the lady that makes the Yi-Xing how to do these in a way that makes them very strong and not likely to crack in the firing. And even though they don't look hollow, they're completely hollow. And then in the same forms that you saw on the shelf over there, I still am working with some of those ideas. So I have this piece I'm working on, and this is still wet, so it looks gray. I don't know how much experience you've had with clay when you see this video, but it's still flexible, and I'm just kind of smoothing it. But I've created the basic form that I want here. I should take this off. wet down there. It was getting too dry, so I had some wet paper towels there. And so I've created a form with negative space and textures. And then this opening, which is kind of the central, this is kind of the central dominant point where I want people to look first. And MiZ RiVKA has probably taught you about some of those things already. If not, she will. And then this will be one glaze color. And then this will be a different contrasting glaze color. So again, this piece has a lot of contrast. Contrast in your work make it so much more interesting. Don't you agree, MiZ RiVKA?
I totally agree. And she is the clay guru, you guys. So we're going to go to her school in a few minutes, and we're going to pick up some books and show you a few books to inspire your teapot designs. And then we're going to just videotape our experience, mostly Lucy because she's the pottery expert. And we hope that you enjoy your Yixing experience with two of the most awesome teachers in the state of California.
Okay, bye for now.
Okay, bye-bye. Good morning, you guys. It's already the next day. We went to a party last night and got up late. And I'm sitting in Lucy's beautiful living room, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about the history of Yi-Xing pots, teapots, and introduce two artists to you, and plus show you some artwork from the books that Ms. Taylor has allowed us to use from her classroom. And so what I want to first tell you is that the book that I'm going to be reading out of is called Teapots Transformed, an Exploration of an Object. And so we're going to be looking through this book, and you can see that it's highly used because she uses it in her classroom with her students. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you from this page. And of course, you know me, I just kind of embellish, and I don't have my reading glasses on. So I'm just going to read and tell you what it's about. And then we'll look at some pictures. And remember that the clay that you're going to be using is from Yixing, China, and it's very important that you know that because it's not just like any clay. That clay has been used for how many years, Ms. Taylor?
I think about 500 or 600 years.
500 or 600 years, and the clay is owned by that province in China, and the clay is getting very, very rare. And it's getting so rare that they're actually digging underneath the whole city and pulling out the dirt and then taking the clay out. And there's only about 20% of the dirt that they take out from under the city is usable Yixing clay. And so it's highly expensive, and to be sent over to the United States and for you to have the opportunity to use it is very exciting. So hopefully you will take this as an experience that you'll probably never get to do again unless you invest in it yourself. And I will give you all the information you need in class where you can get the things if you're really interested. So remember that Yixing came to the United States and was, American artists were influenced by Yixing pottery just recently because China was closed for so long to, Western trade. So I'm going to just read you a little bit. Yixing influence and inspiration. So how the artists in America were inspired. Chinese Yixing teapots have a pervasive influence on Western artists since they were first imported to Europe through the tea trade. Yixing ceramics have been produced by China's Jingasu province since the 16th century, and that's during the time of Leonardo da Vinci Michelangelo. And it was used by locally mined fine full-bodied dark purple or red clay. The teapots are typically very small and scaled for an individual serving, so you would each have your own teapot. They were formed by using the basic hand-building techniques, and it is said that their underglazed surface gives Yixing teapots an excellent brewing quality. And the man that we learned about these teapots from was saying that in China, his tea tastes much better in Yixing ware than anything else. Yixing ware better than anything else. The designs are simple, but they're highly functional, and many depict beautiful forms from nature like leaves and fruits and animals. So you'll notice that the teapots that we'll be showing you have that kind of flavor to them. And during the Ming and Qing dynasties, which is in the 1644, which is the time of, I try to relate it to European artists like Rembrandt, the individual potters created unglazed teapots that were highly valued by the imperial families. While long collected in Korea and Japan, Yixing pottery was enjoyed little by Western and European until the exposure of the opening up of China and the Cultural Revolution, when we started exchanging different products with them. Today, Yi-Xing artists are again prospering, and they have responded to the abundance of the market for the teapots, and their work is being avidly collected worldwide. And one little teapot can cost $10,000, depending on the artist. In recent years, many artists, American ceramic artists, have visited Yixing, and it's about 120 miles outside of Shanghai, and they went there to work amongst the Yixing masters. And I'll introduce you to one of the men that was inspired by that. The Yixing model for some artists is a guide, and for others is just an inspiration for a point of departure of their own artwork. Many artists in this chapter that I'm going to show you and other books that I'm going to show you are directly influenced by the Yixing traditions, and they've shown the use of their clay and forming techniques through the Yixing ideas, but others only loosely are connected with the work and refer to them only as materialistic world type things. Teapots in this that I'm going to be showing you mimic and allude to the natural and the man-made world that's around all of us. Some American artists, with their access to the broader palette of glazes and bold colors, will use them, while some other artists continue with the Yixing, just the beautiful clay body itself, which we're going to do. So you don't have to worry about your tea leaking out of the teapot because there's no glaze inside, because when we fire them, it's going to just vitrify so tight that the water inside will stay, and we don't have to worry about having that glass. And so this picture right here is, believe it or not, and so I'm going to hold it really still. This is a teapot made out of Yixing clay, and it looks kind of like a piece of wood, and here's where the tea comes out.
Now this teapot probably is not a functional teapot.
You don't think so?
I don't think so. I
Boy,
think this is a...
I guess you would take this part off, put the tea in this body.
It's considered a teapot because it has a body, a top, and a spout. But this isn't your traditional Yixing teapot.
Yeah.
Then they haven't seen any, so they don't know.
Oh, okay.
So this is a non-functional sculptural teapot made by, I think, either a European or an American artist. He's not a Yixing artist.
Gio Lastromsi, we're going to see some of his work, and he's from, this particular pot is from Los Angeles, but he did do Yixing pottery. That's where he was inspired.
And well, and this is obvious in the fact that this teapot is not glazed. This is pure clay. No
And
glaze.
it's Yixing clay.
Yes.
Okay, so let's go to the next purple tab. And this is Richard Nodkin. And Lucy and Ms. Taylor and I have had the opportunity to meet Richard. He's an amazing guy, very, very, very quiet, and he lives in Montana. His studio's there, and he can't wait to go to sleep so he could get up in the morning and work. And he works a full day every day, and he makes beautiful teapots and sculptures. And this is part of his Heart series. And let me just read you this because it'll be easier for me. Well, not read it, but I want to look at it for a second. Richard Nodkin combines the Yixing style techniques with political concerns. And you'll see some of his political cooling towers and stuff. But this particular one is done, he's followed a whole group of pots after the nuclear series with this group of atomically correct human hearts that explored the themes of the horrors of war and the origins of the seeds of human conflict. So the human heart. So the work is very tedious and beautifully done. And Richard went actually to Yixing province and was inspired. And this is a beautiful piece made out of Yixing clay, and just the simplicity and beauty of the teapot. Can you see that?
Yes, and again, this one, all the ones, Richard Nodkin's as well, is not a functional teapot. These are sculptural statements that are teapots because they have spouts, tops, and bodies. It's a little hard to tell where each piece